Guys, a couple people messaged me today and said if I could, before I leave and head home, which I'm trying to head out the door right now, cover this technical service bulletin that popped up on their Ford Pass app. So I'm going into the computer right now, and we're going to jump online real quick, and we're going to see what this 21N08 is. So that's the computer starting up right now. So give me a moment to fire this up, and I'll get online and real quick, and we'll look at what this TSB is that all of a sudden everybody's getting a notice for. I didn't check today because I got started as soon as I got to work. I wanted to start rolling, so I didn't even jump on message board to see what new was out. What's going on, guys? Just logging in, just trying to keep my password and everything off the screen so I can show you guys what's going on here. Alright, I'm in PTS right now, and let's look and see what's going on here. On September 13th, there was a TSB put out for Explorer Aviator 21 Bronco airbag warning indicator light with DTCs B1404 and B1407. Master fuse replacement on the transits for the 20 and 21 for the high current junction box. 2020 transit factory keyless entry broken flip key. September 10th, announcing customer satisfaction program 21B55. Certain 2021 and 2022 model year Broncos, Mavericks, Escapes, Corsairs, Edges, and Nautilus equipped with an 8F35 transmission. Fluid check. 21C18 compliance recall on September 10th. For model year 2021 to 2022 model year Transit and 2021 year Transit Connect passenger seatbelt automatic locking retractor function. September 10th, 2020-2021 Explorer Aviator air conditioning inoperative with diagnostic trouble code P0645. What's going on here? September 10th, Escape Corsair roof opening panel sunshade shield pilot clips available as a lower level service part. 2017 to 2020 Continental rear seat armrest cup holder available for service. 2020 Mustang 5-liter engine illuminated light with PO369 built on 1 September 2020 and through 1 December 2020 may experience an illuminated malfunction light with diagnostic trouble code P0369 in the powertrain control module. This may be due to a flatness concern on the mega cap on the right hand side cylinder head. To correct the condition, replace the right hand cylinder head. You guys hearing this? This may be due to a flatness concern on the mega cap on the right-hand cylinder head. To correct the condition, replace the right-hand cylinder head. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. I don't even know what to say. Yeah, just so you guys. Emission recall 21E11. Advance notice 2020 to 2021 year Explorer ST and Police Interceptor vehicles with a 3.0 liter EcoBoost left-hand catalytic converter replacement and powertrain reprogram. September 9th, 2021 F-150 equipped with navigation, illuminated TPMS indicator and or reduced key fob range. Vehicles equipped with navigation may exhibit an illuminated tire pressure monitor, TPMS warning indicator, or a concern with reduced range of key fob. This may be due to a telematics control unit module concern. Remove the TCU fuse, and if the concern is no longer present, replace the TCU. Okay, here we go. I think this is it here. This ain't it. 2014 to 2019 Fusions, 2017 to 2019 Escapes with a 1.5 liter EcoBoost low coolant white exhaust smoke and or illuminated middle built on or before 10 June 2019. There's a new TSB with details for that, so make sure you guys remind me to go back to that before we get off of here. 2016 to 17 various vehicles with body control module programming errors. Installed may exhibit a programming error when using IDS version 122.03 to 123.01, stating data corrupt or configuration failed. Would like to retry. IDS scan tool version 123.02 contains a fix for this error. Install IDS version 123.02 or later from PTS. Where the hell is this thing at, man? I don't see this 21N08 in here. Six sevens, 2013 to 2016 exhaust fluid fault. Forced idle mode and various diagnostic trouble codes stored in the powertrain control module. A video explaining how to remove the vehicle from forced idle mode has been added to the technical service videos under technical assistance tab. 19 to 21 various vehicles, Sync 3 screen, CarPlay, voice prompt concerns, Wi-Fi connection, rear view camera operation, eco robotic voice concerns. September 6, 2021 to 2022 F Super Duty's underhood lamp no longer equipped. Built on or after 10 March of 21. No longer equipped. No underhood lamp. (2015 to 21 F150s on September 6, 2015 to 2021 F150s, 2017 to 2021 F Super Duties, 2018 to 21 Expeditions, Navigators, Vista roof, glass binding and sticking, glass stuck open or closed, noisy operation, TSB 21-2292. Here, this might be what we're looking for right here. September 6th, various vehicles, 3.3 liter, 3.5 liter EcoBoost, 5.0 liter stalling, lack of power and or low fuel rail pressure, fuel jumper line, incorrect installation during service. Some 17 to 21 Ford and Lincoln vehicles equipped with a 3.3 liter, 3.5 liter EcoBoost or 5.0 liters may exhibit stalling, lack of power, low fuel rail pressure, or DTC P0087 or P008A after a repair was made that required the removal of the fuel line that connects high pressure fuel pump to the port injection rail, such as injector replacement or base engine repairs. This line must be installed in the correct orientation as it has an internal one-way check valve to determine if the fuel line has been installed improperly. Look at the position of the Oedeker clamp stainless steel braided around the fuel line. The clamp holds the one-way check valve in place. To determine if the fuel line has been installed properly, look at the position of the Oedeker clamp. Stainless braid clamped around the black fuel line. The clamp holds the one-way check valve in place and should be located closest to the end of the port injection rail. If the clamp is not closest to the port injection rail, remove and reinstall the line in the proper orientation. Where's this freaking... Where's this 21N08 at? I don't see this in here. Normally it pops up on message board if it's a new concern. Let me just type it in and see what this is. Because I've been messaged by a few people today. 21N08. There it is. Sure enough. It is. It's brand new. It looks... Is it brand new? Customer Satisfaction Program 21N08. Certain 2017 to 2020 model year F150s, 18 to 20 Expeditions, 18 to 20 Navigators equipped with a 3.5 liter GTDI engine, PCM reprogrammed due to shudder. Dealer Bulletin. Please tell me the stuff that we just... So this is... Alright. Okay, the same thing. Customer Satisfaction Program 21B10, supplement number 3. They just gave it a new name and called it supplement number 3. This program provides a no-cost, one-time repair if needed, covering the PCM reprogram due to the camshaft-induced engine shudder until January 1st, 2023. Provided the powertrain control module has been reprogrammed under the Customer Satisfaction Program 21B10, this is a one-time repair. Coverage is automatically transferred to subsequent owners. Reason for providing a no-cost one-time repair is a very low percentage of the affected vehicles an engine shudder may develop after receiving the PCM update provided in Program 21B10. For peace of mind, Ford is providing a no-cost one-time repair for customers who receive PCM update under 21B10 to revert the PCM calibration back to its original state before the 21B10. That's what I freaking said before all this happened. That's what I said as soon as this stuff started happening. I put out a message, I put out a video saying, why don't we revert it back to the factory programming before this stupid program we put in here? And everybody looked at me like I was some kind of idiot. And it's exactly what I said back in the day when I caught all this grief from these technicians and stuff. Oh, that's not going to fix it, that's not going to fix it. It's exactly what they're saying. To put it back to the factory programming before this programming that was supposed to fix the problem, so it takes the shudder away. Wes, you were one of the ones that we did your engine. We did the phasers and everything on it, and that's exactly what I said before all this happened. Put it back to the factory programming and leave it alone. If it's bad phasers, let's replace the phasers and stuff in the customer's car, and let's move on. This programming stuff and trying to reinvent the wheel and all this other stuff, it's not the brightest idea. You're not going to program a mechanical failure out of reprogramming a computer with electric control of oil. If the part is failing and it's no good, then you replace the part. You can put all the PCM calibration and programming that you want, but it's going to come back as a failed item. So basically the 21N08 looks to be just an update explaining why it happened. It's not necessarily saying... So here's the thing. This basically is just saying All right. There is some information here on the technical side. It says warm up the engine. Test drive the vehicle. The engine shutter vibration may be evident during RPMs from 1000 to 1500 and light throttle tip-in between 25 and 55 mile an hour. Was a shutter noticed? Yes. Proceed to step 4. So if we go to step 4, disconnect the oil pump electrical connector from the engine and secure the wire harness or coolant tube with a zip tie to prevent movement. Okay? Test drive the vehicle again to determine if the shutter is still present. Is the shutter present? Yes. The shutter is not. Yes. If you say yes after disconnecting the oil pump connector in the front, just below the crank, the shutter is not caused by the 21B10 programming and the normal diagnostic should be followed. Field service action does not apply. But if you say the shutter goes away, this shutter is caused by the engine, proceed to step 6, remove the zip tie and connect the oil pump connector. Number 7, connect the battery charger. Number 8, reprogram the PCM using the latest IDS release. Make sure you're connected to the internet. Clear all DTCs and connect the battery charger. So basically what they're saying is, go into the computer. So basically they just gave us a huge key item here on what 21B10 is. There were so many questions about what was going on, and everybody was speculating. Everybody was saying, oh, you know, maybe it's this and maybe that. They just told us basically what they did with the 21B10 programming. They're saying that they're manipulating how the connector going, or how the oil pump is controlled, right? And this is what we were talking about. If you remember way back when, before all this started kicking off, I went out, I had a pretty popular video, a lot of the F150 forums and stuff we're using, and I said, look, if we can learn to manipulate the oil pump, if we can learn to crank this a little bit longer and get some of that oil out of the sump and give it time to build oil pressure before firing it at 1000 RPM, 1500 RPM, and then it coming back down, we could actually save some of these cam phaser, valve train, clatter, timing chain issues if they would just build some programming in to actually crank the engine just a couple seconds longer. We'll get oil pressure up out of the sump, we'll actually pull it through, and we'll minimize a lot of that damage or that clatter that's being done at startup, thus possibly minimizing wear items of the timing components. Just build it into the programming. Just a couple seconds longer is all it would really take to minimize a lot of that clatter as soon as you start the vehicle up. I have my lube techs doing it every time they change the oil in a customer's vehicle, regardless if they pre-fill the filter or if it's an inverted filter or whatever. Every one of them are flood moding every single vehicle that comes in here, and I listen like a hawk. I'm standing here and I'm like, I'm working on my job, and when an oil change is done, all of a sudden I hear boom, no clatter, no nothing. And I look down there and I'm like, hey bud, thanks man, thanks for actually listening to me, thanks for doing the right thing. Every single one of them, there's not a single vehicle that gets started in this shop without putting it in flood mode first, pulling that oil and stuff up, getting some movement of even residual oil that may be up there already, and starting the vehicle. So this right here is telling us, okay, if you put the 21B10 in, and there's some issues that were not there before, unplug the oil pump connector right underneath the crank. Does the clatter go away? If the clatter goes away, plug it back in and then put it back to its stock form of programming. But if you unplug the oil pump connector and nothing changes, it's not the programming. It's a mechanical failure. You probably need to be moved to the 21N03 programming for replacement. And if we look at what 21N03 is, let's actually, before we move forward, we need to go back here and we need to answer this question back in the beginning as if we're doing it different. Because we answered it one way, now let's answer it a different way. Warm up the engine. Test drive the vehicle. The engine shutter vibration may be evident during RPM 1000 to 1500. Light throttle tip-in between 25 and 55 mile an hour. Was a shutter noticed? At first we said yes. Let's say no this time and see what happens. Okay, so no passes inspection, this field service action does not apply. So they don't want you to touch anything. If you've already had programming done, if your vehicle's already been fixed, they're saying at this point this doesn't apply to you. Leave well enough alone and don't mess with it any further. But if you are noticing the shudder even after all the programming is done, go down there, unplug the connector at the oil pump, re-verify that the issue is there or not there. If it's still there, the programming didn't do it, you pretty much have mechanical failure and your cam phasers and stuff need to be replaced. But if you do unplug the oil pump and the situation changes, then you know the programming is what caused it, because it's trying to control the oil pump as well. So part of the programming is built into this oil pressure thing. Way back then when is what I ended up talking about with all this. I talked about extended cranking and being able to manipulate oil flow to those sensitive areas on startup. The customer, I'm sure, is not going to mind with just an extra couple seconds of cranking on that initial start to actually get some oil moving up there. It would be nice if we could put some kind of check valve in that upper system so once oil gets up there, it seats. And I know it's too much to ask for right now, but maybe in future, it's live. Maybe in the future, we could look at possibly doing something like that. Maybe a more preventative measure to stop these types of things from happening. There's so many issues that I've seen outside of here where a customer's vehicle is not under warranty anymore and they don't have access to any of these programs. Where I flush out their engine real good with a real good strong cleaner, I put a real good oil and stuff and additive and stuff in there, and I actually have them, if the vehicle sits more than a 12-hour period, flood mode it. And not a single time after that have they ever come back talking about shuddering or any of this vibration stuff, because I've learned the system. I've learned how to manipulate the system by early OCIs, keeping good oil in the vehicle, and learning that the system has faults. It's a very faulty system. The anti-feedback diaphragm is supposed to keep the oil in that upper part of the engine, right? But we know over time that doesn't happen. It's bound to actually relieve a lot of that oil that's sitting in the upper end of that motor. It's just going to happen. It's not a total seal system. We don't have something like, what was it, the Dodge filter that I cut open, and I was like, oh, why is there no bypass valve in here? I don't have a lot of experience with the Dodge diesel stuff. But the guys popped up on here and said the reason why their system does work a little bit better than those diesels is because they have a valve built into the head of that oil filter, the oil pump system, to where when it's shut off, it front seats, and it doesn't let oil just flow back. Well, maybe we should look into doing stuff like that. Maybe we should take a page out of their book and have some kind of front seating valve that once the vehicle is shut off, it front seats, and we're not worrying about a rubber diaphragm in the top of an oil filter. We actually have some component that is of control that can actually front seat and stop that oil from flowing back and keep it where it's supposed to be. That would be amazing. I'm not an engineer though. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's what 21N08 is. Basically saying the same thing that the 21B10 did, but what they're saying is if your stuff is screwed up because of the 21B10, here's a quick way to figure out whether the program is working for you or it's not working for you. And I'll show you. They want you unplugging the connector right here underneath the crank. And then driving the vehicle to see if the issue has went away. If it has went away, then they want you to take the programming back out of the vehicle and revert it back to its factory calibration. Which this could have been done a long time ago. This could have been done with the first vehicle that went into the dealership where the guy was telling me, dude, they're literally pulling my valve body out. They don't know what's going wrong with the trans. They're pulling my cylinder heads, my camshafts, everything's getting replaced. Because they literally don't have, put it back to the factory freaking programming. Put it back to the programming before all the issues started. Put it back to how it was before all the excessive issue was building up with the shuttering and everything. It's not that hard. I love the Coyote engines. Absolutely love them. So what we need to do, actually, before we get out of here, while you guys are here, we need to go back and we need to look at that, what that new message was about the EcoBoost engines that I've been doing all the short blocks and long blocks on. I want to see what that is. I didn't even know. I'm gonna go back and see what that was all about. I mean, I love Ford's 5-liter. I love it. I absolutely love it. You know the problems we don't have? We don't have problems with the 3.7. We don't have problems with the naturally aspirated 3.5. We don't have problems with the naturally aspirated 3.3. Those don't really have issues. Yeah, you get water pump leaks and stuff from time to time, but we don't have all the Phasser rattle and stuff like that. It's the boosted engines. The 2.7 had a problem for like a couple of years, like 16, 17. There was some hit and miss stuff. But the biggest issue that the 2.7 liter EcoBoost has had is oil pan leak, because it's a plastic pan. You know, it's inherently going to happen with a boosted engine that's constantly being baked all the time, right? But that's a phenomenal running engine. You get in that 2.7 liter EcoBoost, and that sucker runs. I've pulled up in just a factory XLT 2.7 liter EcoBoost, and some guy with a Chevy 5.3 thinks he's going to take off and leave that thing, and that little 2.7 liter dusts the hell out of those trucks, just because that the way that boost kicks in and how that truck just takes off is just phenomenal. Now maybe maybe a 5.3 or something like that would get it after rolling, but from a dig, that 2.7 liter I've seen dust these V8s like it's nothing, and I don't see problems with that vehicle. Nothing. I don't see any issues with that. I don't understand what the problem is with the 3.5. That seems to be the problem child. We haven't had any issues with the 2021 3.5 liter EcoBoost. People have praised that truck so much that they absolutely love it. I want to go back to that. So what they want is they want you to, if you're having the shutter, they want you to come to the dealer and they want you to unplug the oil pump connector underneath the crank and then go drive the vehicle. If you see the shutter is gone, then it's because of the programming that is causing the shutter still. If it's still the same, the programming never caused the problem to begin with, and they want you to basically look into the mechanical failure of it shuttering. If you unplug the connector and it goes away, they want you taking the program out of the vehicle and putting the factory programming back into it like I originally said back when. That's it. So the shutter is going to feel almost like your trans is slipping. It's going to feel like a misfire / trans slip. And a lot of people misconstrue it for the trans is acting up. And that's not it at all. It'll be jittery, like you're bouncing, and it almost feel like a really heavy misfire sometimes. That's why whenever Ford has you go in and do this programming, when you first come in for the 21B10, you hook it up, you put the 21B10 in. If the vehicle came in with no shutter problems, when you put the programming in, you say this vehicle is not being programmed for shutter issues, and then you put the program in. And then you pull up your power balance on your IDS and you actually go drive the vehicle and you monitor all the cylinders. And you see if they're all pretty steady with no misfires. If they're pretty steady with no misfires, you bring the vehicle back, you give the customer their vehicle, they're done. But if you put the programming in and now there is a shutter issue where there was no shutter issue before, while you're on your test drive, you can see that in your power balance. You then come back to the dealership, reprogram the computer again, except this time you say, yes, I am reprogramming because of shutter, and it reprograms the computer a completely different way, and then you go back out again and test drive the vehicle again. Now, I've seen guys with no issue, no shutter, no nothing at all, come in, get the programming done. It didn't have shutter when it came in, so you select, no, I'm not reprogramming because of shutter. They go drive the vehicle, and now about 35, 40 mile an hour, 45 mile an hour just at tip in, you'll feel that shutter there and you're like, oh, that ain't right. Go back to the dealership, reprogram again, except this time select yes instead of no. And then they go back out and they test drive and all of a sudden the shutter's gone. So it's hit or miss when you come in. You could have the shutter in the middle of programming, or you could get rid of the shutter in the middle of programming. It's a shot in the dark. You're either selecting yes to programming for shutter or no to programming for shutter. That's it. So if you did the one 2 months ago, you probably got the original one instead of the newest one. Matt Camara says they won't update unless the shutter is there. That's not true. If the 21B10 actually shows up as a campaign, they'll update either way. You're answering the question to, did the vehicle come in for a shutter, or are you programming and there was no shutter? And then you decide if you program a second time to fix the problem, or the problem is still okay, or there never was a problem. If you read the 21B10, there's two options. It's either I am programming because of shutter, or I'm not programming because of shutter. But if the 21B10 is active on a person's vehicle and they didn't have shutter, they still get the 21B10 done. It's right in the campaign articles and everything for it. It's either yes, you're programming for it, or no, you're not programming for it. The original got revoked because it was really messing with people's vehicles. So they realized almost immediately, hey, stop. This is not working. This programming is not working. It's making people's vehicles wrong. Mess up even worse. Stop. Give us a while to come up with something. They kept promising. And then all of a sudden, what was it, like a month ago or something? The 21B10 was revised again, and they came out with the new programming, or 3 weeks ago or something like that. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people got that bad update. But I mean, guys were literally ripping cylinder heads off and valve bodies out of transmissions because they didn't know what to do. There was nothing that they could go off of, and they were trying to get the customer their vehicle back. All right, I want to click on this real quick. This 21. It's for the EcoBoost, the 2014 to 2019 Fusions, the 17 to 19 Escapes, the 1.5 liter EcoBoost, low coolant, white exhaust smoke, and or illuminated malfunction light, built on or before 10 June 2019. Something new popped up. This article supersedes 20-2100. The service procedure and parts list. What did they change on this? It doesn't. Where has anything changed? Parts quantity refers to the number of service parts part number required and may be different than the number of individual pieces. Service part numbers contain one piece unless otherwise stated as needed. Indicates the part is required, but the number may vary or is not a whole number. Parts can be billed out as less than one if needed. Indicates the part is not mandatory. So it just looks like it doesn't look like anything was changed. They just changed some wording. For Escapes all-wheel drive vehicles, it is necessary to remove the transfer PTU for engine removal and installation. Note, for Escape all-wheel drive vehicles, it is necessary to remove the power transfer unit for engine removal and installation. We knew that. Note, advise the customer that some odor may be present after the repair has been completed until the residual coolant dissipates from the exhaust. I always tell the customer that. That's common sense. Note, the head gasket required for this repair may differ from the parts catalog. This is due to the fact that the parts catalog contains the information of the vehicle as it was originally built with a saw-cut short block. That's that short block I'm often talking about that's got that saw-cut path between the cylinder walls that they're getting rid of. The replacement short block used in this article is a cross-drilled design. It's a cross-drilled design where it's one small hole in the coolant galley that goes up in between the cylinder walls, and there's a small dimple hole in the head gasket where the coolant passes through that little hole instead of the saw-cut design. The 21N08 is going back to as-built. The 21B10 may have went back to as-built, but they never admitted that. If the crankshaft front seal is rolled during positioning, remove and reposition the seal, or an oil leak will occur. Use the crankshaft front seal installer to seat the new front crank seal. That seal installer is terrible. It's garbage. And oftentimes it doesn't work like they say it does. There's many better methods to doing it than that. I've never had a single one of these EcoBoost engines come back leaking doing it my way, but I've seen plenty of technicians in this shop and other shops, and me having to fix their problems using that crank seal installer. And they think they've got it seated, and it's not seated. It does not work. And if it works, you're lucky that it worked. Make sure to install the oil pump bolts in the correct orientation and follow the appropriate tighten procedure. Okay, that's a given. Fusion vehicles equipped with an accessory drive belt tensioner do not use a stretch belt, obviously. And they're not the only ones that have that belt design. You can get an Escape that was built for some weird way where it actually has a tensioner, and a lot of them don't. So it's not just the Fusions, it's the Escapes as well. I don't get. Anyway, it is what it is. Exactly. I don't use the tool because the tool, it does, a lot of times it does nothing but get in the way. I'll set my seal in, I'll start to roll it, and as I roll it, I keep the lip tucked forward, and then I'll use something like a pen cap, or I'll take a really thick, like 100 pound, 150 pound zip tie, and I'll actually put it in top of the seal, and as I'm rolling the seal in, I'll pull the zip tie around with it, or I'll use like a pocket screwdriver, and I'll be careful, and I'll just make sure it's tucked all the way. Use that seal driver, you're gonna screw the thing up, or you're just wasting your time doing it. A lot of aggravation for something that doesn't even really work that well. I don't know, Brian. I'm not exactly sure. I know if a lot of people would start listening to us instead of these oil change companies, and if I know a lot of people would start listening to us instead of the manufacturers that a lot of these people claim know more about what's going on with these vehicles, they would be a lot better off. Yeah, I got a video on how to install that seal as well. It's just, it's not that hard to do it. You just got to be patient, and you have to focus on what you're doing. And you know, I'm sure you have a trick just like I have a trick, but I've never had one come back leaking. I've literally seen so many people come back leaking. Yeah, it's the pump turning on. It's pre-priming. Matt, as soon as you touch that door, that pump turns on. It's like a wake-up. It pre-primes the system. No, I know, you're right. It's a lot more prevalent in the newer engines, but now we're talking about more power, we're talking about more stuff on board. Sweet. Nice, Dan. That's very nice. Now, if they would put some kind of electric oil pump in the system somewhere, as soon as you touch that door, it primed the system with oil, that would be phenomenal too. My oil changed every 500, you mean 5,000 miles? Yeah, the 21B did solve a lot of people's rattles, but some of it didn't. So I think, hold on a second. Let me catch up on comments. I seen one comment was deleted. What was that comment deleted for? Oh, okay. So I can view the comment, but everybody else. Bob, it's okay to leave those if you want to leave those. I'll address them without. So here's the problem with changing your oil once a year. You can have 100 miles on that oil and change your oil once a year. It's still not a good idea. There's a reason why these additive packages have a shelf life. They don't last forever. Just because you're not putting miles on them doesn't mean they're not wore out. Some people financially can only do it once a year. I get it. You got to do what you can do. But at the same time, they fall out of suspension. They don't last as long. They have a shelf life. Changing your oil once a year is a personal you thing. It's something that you believe is a good idea. It's something that you think is okay because your vehicle runs this way. But it's actually not a good idea in the grand scheme of things. 99.9% of the technicians out there that are pretty serious about doing this, that know what's going on, will tell you at least by 6 months or something like that. At least, 5-6 months, do something. Change it. Even if you're not driving it, I understand that may be crazy to you, but changing your oil once a year because you put 500 miles on the vehicle is a terrible idea. Even if you only put 3,000 miles on the vehicle a year is a terrible idea. Change the oil in the vehicle. It's the blood of the vehicle. It's literally what keeps 99.9% of the things moving and free and just think about blood going through your body. Just say the blood never pumped for an entire year. It just stayed stagnant. You'd have so much toxin build up. You'd have so much just stuff sitting around waiting to be cleaned out and stuff like that. You'd literally get to the point where your body just wasn't efficient. It just wouldn't run right. Well, that additive package and those protectants, those chemicals that are in that oil, sit there, and you run them 500 miles in a year and then change the oil once a year. You're doing a disservice to that vehicle majorly. Change the oil in the vehicle. Llama says, is the unrealistic oil change intervals a selling point, or is that something that's relevant to only the optimal driving conditions? It's a selling point. None of us will ever be in some kind of magical fairyland 7,500 mile OCI. It'll never work. It's a smokescreen. All manufacturers use it. All manufacturers want people to believe that you can go 7,500 miles, 10,000 miles. The Toyota guys love bragging about it. But you look inside their motors and you might have 1 out of 10 that's actually clean because of the type of oil that they use, because they use a high detergent Pennzoil Platinum Ultra or an AMS oil or something like that they can get that out of because it has the type of protectant there. But most people are running some kind of just regular synthetic blend, some kind of regular house brand. It's not a bad oil, and they're trying to run it 10,000 miles thinking that it's okay, or 7,500 miles thinking that it's okay, and it's not the best oil out there. It's not an oil that's designed to be run that. Even if they say it's just not. It doesn't work. I wonder when people are going to start listening and seeing the videos and stuff that guys like me and these different repair guys on here that are showing people what things look like inside their motor, when they're actually going to start listening. It's a selling point. It's 100% a selling point. Do you see a lot of uneven pad wear on the rear? Yeah, I mean, it's not an uncommon thing. You might have something on the outboard pad that's like, let's just say it's like 6 30 seconds or something like that, and inboard will be at like 2 30 seconds, or outboard will be 7 30 seconds, inboard is 3 or 4 30 seconds. Or let's say if we look at millimeter, inboard is 3 millimeter, outboard is like 6 or 7 millimeter. So it's not an uncommon thing, but I do find that it's a lot of it is rust buildup in those slide pins in the rear of those Explorers and stuff. It's very, very common. We get them in here all the time, where the vehicle was just serviced a year and a half, 2 years ago. You would think that everything would be moving pretty freely still, because that's not a long time. They come back in for reservice, and they're terrible. I'm oftentimes having to pull caliper brackets off, take them over to the actual vise, heat everything up to get the pins and stuff out of it, clean everything. People just either don't drive their vehicles enough, they're driving in severe conditions, or it's the type of metals and stuff that are being used when they're building this type of stuff that, bimetal corrosion and stuff, it's just an attractant for like the boots and stuff on the slide pins to swell, and moisture and debris and stuff to build up inside there. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a lot of those calipers that are the wind-in calipers. That's the emergency brake is what it is. And I have to use my pneumatic tool, my hand pneumatic tool, where I got to pull a trigger and applies a lot of pressure on that piston, and then try to crank it in, because you'll wear yourself out trying to get those things to go in sometimes. A lot of times they're just completely seized up, especially on the heavier duty like transits and stuff. It's terrible trying to work on those things. I don't know why Ford would go with a belt-driven oil pump. It actually doesn't make any sense to me, and to be honest with you, it's stupid, because they have the 1 liter in the Fiestas, and basically what ends up happening is, if that belt stretches or the tensioner messes up or anything inside that front cover, and it can't keep the tension on that belt-driven oil pump, you find them with 30,000 miles, the motor's being replaced. And it's literally like a 10-hour job. You just pick that little thing up out of the top of the car and drop the new one in. About 10 hours, you got a brand new engine in the car. But they've already seen with that the common failure with the belt-driven oil pump. But now we're going to take that and stick it on a 5-liter F-150. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I'm one person. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know. I have a 2019 F-150 5-liter, and it's constantly what I would call pinging, like it's running and shifting, like it's running on shifty gas. Ford dealership says there's nothing wrong. Well, you can actually check, if you had a scan tool, if you go to the dealership, which I don't know why a lot of dealership technicians don't use this tool, you can actually go into your data logger and you can look at your fuel quality. You can look at the amount of ethanol and stuff that's in the fuel and what the vehicle is actually reading, and you can actually see how much ethanol is actually in that system. There's been a few times where I've seen people come in and I can monitor what's going on with their fuel system, and I can see if there's something faulty, even if codes are not being set. If you look at one of my previous videos, it was an Escape that came in, and I did a motor on the vehicle. I did a short block, and I sincerely thought I did something wrong, and I felt terrible about the lady having to come back into the dealership. And I was like, man, I'm going to go over everything that I did and make sure I dotted my T's and crossed my I's, because I really hope I didn't mess up this lady's vehicle, or I was thinking about something, or I got distracted and the timing didn't get set right. But then I was thinking to myself, well, I remember this vehicle, and I did a full video on it from start to finish. This vehicle ran very, very good, and I'm always very careful when I rebuild engines. So I don't really think that I messed this up. Let me look and see. All the timing was right. Everything was good. I started looking at her ethanol level, and there's something like, and also the spark adjustment. And there was a few things I was looking at. I said, you know what, I'm going to take some of my own money because I feel bad for this lady, and I don't want to have to call her up and say, hey, I'd like for you to give us money so we can go put gas in it. I want to actually go put really good gas. So I went and got like 91 or 93, and I went out and I'm looking at how the timing and stuff, how the spark advance and everything is functioning. And as I was driving this vehicle with better fuel in it, because she had got some shoddy fuel out in like Missouri or Indiana somewhere, Indiana, and it wasn't a name brand gas station. And as I was driving it with Shell's 93 Nitro in it, I noticed that it was correcting the timing more and more and more and more, and the vehicle was running better and better and better and better. And then all of a sudden, it was down to like super low numbers where it wasn't having to add a lot of timing to it. It wasn't seeing a lot of ethanol level and stuff like that. And I was like, so all it was just bad fuel. It was causing the vehicle to run poor, and she was getting this pinging, knocking sound at times where the vehicle was constantly trying to correct this. So I'm looking at the spark knock and timing advancement and stuff and how it's trying to control everything. And eventually it started coming down back into normal numbers, and then it was completely fine, and it run like a raped ape, man. I got it out on the highway 80, 90 mile an hour, just trying to make sure. And I was honest with this lady, like, look, I'm going to get it out on the highway and I'm going to run this thing. I'm going to run it like I'm a race car driver for a certain amount of miles, and I don't feel comfortable doing it, but I want to make sure that at low RPM, high RPM, wide open throttle, mid throttle, low throttle, I want to make sure I'm covered across my base. And that's what all that knocking and pinging and stuff was bad fuel. I think Coyotes run better on premium. I see a lot of guys that they'll just like Joe said, they'll use a Shell fuel and they'll run like a 91 or something mid-grade in it, and they run great. You typically get about 120,000 miles out of those water pumps, Dan. It's not anything that's like uncommon to, like if you get it done in like say 100,000 miles, you won't really have an issue theoretically, and you know, based on consistency of what I've done, you get about 120,000 miles out of each pump before they start messing up. Now, can it happen earlier? Yes. Can you go longer? I've seen people come in here with 160,000 miles on the original water pump and still not leaking. There's some things that you can do to help mitigate that pump leaking and actually focus on cleanliness of your engine bay. Make sure the engine bay is really, really clean. Make sure you're not letting debris and stuff build up and a lot of, garbage and stuff and leaves from sitting under trees and all that, because that will accumulate rodents. It'll accumulate stuff to build up on grounds and different areas and electrical connectors and stuff. I like to keep my engine bay as clean as I possibly can, and I actually add an extra ground to my alternator bracket or somewhere on my engine, and I run it over to the battery, and I plan it in the future running a second ground from the motor to body, and I want to make sure I have a good path for flow. And I notice if I keep down a lot of electrolysis, if I keep down the amount of charge that can be seen, a lot of people don't know you can do this, but you can actually test by going from your coolant reservoir with your positive lead, and then run your negative lead over to your negative battery terminal with the vehicle off and everything cool, preferably, or maybe lukewarm. And you can actually put your meter on DC volts to see what you're reading. Do you have any kind of electrolysis going on through the actual coolant? So I added an extra ground strap because I think I was reading like 0.39 volts or something in my town car. And I was thinking to myself, wait a second, I always see the town cars, the 462 valves with that built up like the corrosion from, or the fuzzy stuff from the coolant around the intake manifold. And I'm still on the original intake manifold on this car. I wonder if I can save it. Can I get that as close to zero as possible? So I took a ground cable and I pulled the stud out of the bottom of my alternator. I got about a 3-foot ground cable, pretty thick. Eyelids were already on it on the AutoZone shelf. They're already pre-made. And I ground down the surface real good, cleaned the bolt real good, the mounting spot where the alternator goes. I put the bolt through the eyelid, ran it across my valve cover and up to my battery and bolted the other end to my battery. And that .39 of a bolt that was in there went down to like .008. There was like nothing there. I was actually had a path for voltage to end up in that coolant. And I cut down that electrolysis by adding that extra ground strap to the system. And that actually helps protect the cooling system as well. It extends the life of it. And not only that, it can help pull that little bit of that surface voltage that's in there out, so that water pump can actually be extended a little bit longer. You're not affecting seals and things going on inside that pump. He said long term. Should I hold on to what I have? Would you pick up a 2021 Plus or hold on? I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I'm comfortable with. I was burned by a new model that came out with Chevy, a new body design. I got the Chevy Malibu 2LT when it came out, 2016, the new body style. I fell in love with the car. I love the iridescent pearl. I love the sporty rims and stuff. I didn't want a Premier package. I wanted the next to Premier package, which was the 2LT. It's a 2-liter turbo. And man, that sucker would move pretty good. And I was pretty impressed with that little turbo 4-cylinder. And it was problem after problem after problem after problem. And I was like, why in the hell did I even do this? I was back to the dealer like 15 times in a matter of a year for problem after problem after problem. I always wait to see what happens with the new design. Since that day, I will never buy a brand new year or design that comes out until I see what's been going on. I learned my lesson the hard way, and I knew better going into it, and I chose to do it anyway because I figured, there's a warranty. And eventually, through the term of the warranty, those problems did get worked out. They did take care of me in the long run, but it was the frustration and the hassle of being down in that time of letting the warranty take care of the issues that were troubling me with the car. I can't get that time back. I can't get those days of work off back. I can't get the money that I lost back. I can't get the time that I spent 3, 4, 5 hours at the dealership away from my family back. I can't get the time that I spent driving the shitbox loaners that they put me in when I spent $35,000 on a car and they put me in a $5,000 Chevy Cruze where the exhaust is falling off of it. I don't think that was fair to me. I don't think that's fair to customers that they get treated that way. So I will never buy a new model vehicle when it comes out again. Now, I can't tell other people what to do, but I just know that's what I would do personally. I'm going to. I'm not going to trim this beard out anytime soon. No, I didn't change the LCM on the town car. There's been no issue with it. It doesn't look like in the warranty history that it's ever been done. So I'm thinking to myself, if I'm not having a problem, I'm not going to mess with it. My 2019 5.0 is using oil. Ford is now running an oil consumption check to see if the engine needs replacing. Good idea. A lot of people say it's because of the type of cylinder liners that they used, that this issue is going on. Other people are saying it's because of the dropout in start-stop systems, and there's a bunch of theories. The 21 Power Boost, if it has the tow package, it seems to have the issues. The one that doesn't have the heavy-duty tow package doesn't seem to be so problematic. But the engine and transmission itself, I haven't seen any issues with the Power Boost. They've so far been running great. No, I don't. Jordan, you're going to have to go back into the dealership and you're going to have to get this new one that we just talked about when we started the live stream today. You're going to have to go into the dealership and get the 21N08 done and see if it needs to be reverted back to factory programming before the 21B10 was done originally. Yes, you did. We talked about that right in the beginning. The 21N08, again, is you go back to the dealer. If there's a shutter issue and they did the 21B10 programming, they unplug the oil pump connector underneath the crank, and then they take the vehicle on a drive. If the shutter goes away, they know the programming was the problem. If the shutter doesn't go away, they know the programming wasn't it. So if it's unplugged and they go for a drive and the shutter goes away, they put your programming back to factory. If it stays the same, you have a mechanical failure issue with your timing components, something of that nature. It needs to be diagnosed. So that's what the 21N08 is. They go in to see if the 21B10 is still causing the issue. If it is, they remove it. No, I didn't look up anything yet. I've been stuck on this 2020 cop car putting that pump in it. Ethanol-free gas is probably the best thing that you can do for your vehicle other than short OCIs. If I could find ethanol-free gas, I'd pay $1 more a gallon just to put the stuff in my vehicle. I hate running ethanol. People are like, "Oh, run E85, run E85. It's so cheap and it's good for your vehicle." And I'm like, "No, the hell it's not. The hell it ain't." Corn fuel it makes power because you can use so much of it and it cools things down, but it's not cleaner for your vehicle at all. You get more BTUs per, let's just say, unit of standard gasoline than an E85. More BTUs means it's creating more energy. If it's creating more energy, it's making more power. You can run E85 or ethanol gas in your vehicle, and let's just say this week you get 240 miles to a tank. Next week, run straight like 93 nitro or 91 or 87, and you end up getting, you spend more money, but now you're getting 260 or 270 miles to that tank. We had like an old Taurus that was an E85 setup, and we ran it, and it was dirt cheap to put E85 in it. And it got sucky fuel mileage, but it was cheap to run. And when we actually broke it down in trade school, we ended up getting like 310 miles to a tank on regular gasoline versus like 230 on E85. And it ended up being cheaper because of how long you could run regular gasoline versus E85. It's a garbage fuel, it's a dirty fuel, and it's only good for making power. And you can run a lot of it making power. Yeah, why would you have to dump even more additives into your fuel to make up for a dirty fuel? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you got to run what you got to run. I mean, I run 93 nitro in my town car. That's because my computer's tuned for that timing-wise. What are we talking about? My 5.0 eats oil too, but it wasn't enough for them to do anything. Ate like 3/4 a quart and 3,000 miles, put a catch can on it, did an oil change, and how NGK plugs in, and yeah, that's pretty standard for that motor though. 3/4 quart and 3,000 miles. It's not that big a deal, especially with the size of the 5-liter oil system. What is it? Used to be 7.7, and now it's like that. It was like 7.7, and then 8.8, and then I think some of them are up to 10 quarts or something. I don't know what it is. I keep losing track. I don't change oil, but I will change oil if they need help, and I always got to go back to the chart because I never remember all the numbers. It's just not my thing. I'm not a lube tech, but I know it went from like 7.7, and it wasn't at one point like 8.8, and then went up to 10 quarts. I'm like, golly, man. So that system running 3/4 quart low and 3,000 miles with the amount of oil that's in that system, that's not that big a deal. Try being my girlfriend's truck, the 07 Sierra. She's losing about a quart every 1,500 miles, maybe a tad bit more. So I'm going in and I'm actually reworking all the AFM stuff and getting rid of all the problems so she stops losing oil, and there's 3/4 nothing. It's good that you put a catch can on it though, because that'll clean things up for you quite a bit. Yeah, Aaron, it sucks because they want to save money, but they don't realize at the same time they're actually doing more damage to the motor in general, and they're not really saving money in the long run. They think they are, they're really not. I have a cold tick on my 3.7 Mustang. I've heard quite a few 3.7 Mustangs with a little bit of a tick, and it's weird because first it sounds like it's coming from between the transmission and then the engine, and then all of a sudden it sounds like it's coming from the upper end. And then I'm back down at the engine, and I'm listening all over the place for this thing. I'm like, what do you want me to do, man? It's so hard to pinpoint this, where this tick is coming from. I've heard a couple 3.7 Mustangs that have this very particular cold start tick that I can hear sometimes after it's warmed up as well. And it makes me travel all over the place, and I could never pinpoint where it was. And I was like, well, you want to give me time to tear this down? I mean, if you want to pay me 5 or 6 hours to start tearing this down and see if I can see something, I can. But if it's just a tick and it's not affecting the performance of the vehicle, I'd drive it. It ain't worth getting into to tear it down and then induce a problem when it was just a little bit of a tick to begin with, and then you could really be out a lot of money. Yeah, I know, but if it was a Phasser and it was causing you might get a performance issue out of it, or while it was ticking, if you had access to a data logger or something like that, you could monitor to see when it's ticking if it's causing any kind of erratic timing patterns or the Phasser jumping around in some instance. If it's a tick, I would think it would be more of like a valve tick or something like that, but I can't speak for your instance. I don't know the type of tick. Some people could explain something as a tick to me, and it's more of a tap. A tap, a tick, a tang, a click. All these sounds mean different things to me because I hear and listen to them every single day. It's like you telling me I hear something coming from the front of the motor, and it's a growl when you really meant, or the front right of the vehicle, and you're saying it's a growl when you really meant it's a howl. They're different. A growl is from a bearing. A howl comes from type like a differential set or something like that, where you have two rotational masses that are embedding with each other to transfer motive movement. And a growl is a bearing set inside a case that's simply failing. So when people explain sounds to me, I'm already trying to investigate and start this process of elimination on basically what they're saying. And sometimes they explain things wrong, and it's hard for me to go in the direction that they want me to go because they use different terminology than me, and I have to investigate that. When should you do a transmission oil change for a GT Mustang? Transmission, I would recommend if you can get it in 30,000 miles comfortable and it's not a cash thing. I like to do OCIs early. My town car, 4R70W, every 30 to 40,000 miles, it's getting flushed. I'm coming up on 30,000 miles now, and I do a complete flush. Actually, it's only 20,000 on the new fluid, but I'm anal about that. I don't like fluids getting old in my vehicle at all. That's why my vehicle's got 231,000 miles on it. It still runs like the day you would buy it. No wear at all. But I'd like transmission services between 30 and 40,000. The vehicle back by then to service it. I just had a gentleman come in the other day, and he was like, "Hey, Rich, when I was in here talking about my brakes and stuff last time, you had recommended that I do the trans service. I'm gonna go ahead and take you up on that. Can we get the trans done?" So I knocked it out for him real quick, flushed his transmission and stuff. Vehicle ran great. He was ecstatic about it. Called today and said, "Hey, can you get me in next week because I want to get my diff serviced as well. I really like his fluid recommendations, and I don't want to follow what the manufacturer says because it just doesn't seem like it works for me." And guys like us know in the field what works and what doesn't work. I would think no more than 50. And then also your coolant about the same interval, 50, 60,000 is when I do mine. If you can get in a little sooner, you can maybe knock out a few things at one time. The differentials, same thing. I'm sorry, I'm anal about that stuff. I try to tell people, if you're pushing 60, it's time to change it. But I like to see it right around 40,000 miles. Everything that I like major-wise is right around that 40,000 mile ballpark as an extended for me, because I have the money to do it. I want to take care of my car because my car helps me make money. I need to get it taken care of. Cam phasor rattle? Cam phasor rattle is where the on startup, let's just say you don't have oil in the vehicle and you start the vehicle. And when you start the vehicle, you hear startup, they'll start rattling. It's that shuddering back and forth where it'll actually start to lubricate everything and free that up, and then it'll actually be able to advance and retard like it's supposed to without rattling. Buffered real bad. Maybe it's time for me to get off here. The battery is running low. I was quoted $700 for a trans filter and oil replaced for my 2016 Transit. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I know a trans service is somewhere around $200 for the fluid, and we typically take 12 quarts and we run the vehicle as it's getting hot and circulating, and add pull. So we're trying to get as much as we can out of there. I would probably think the reason actually I do know why. To drop the pan on the Transit, you have to pull the subframe out of it. That's why. Yeah, that's what Tom said. Sorry, this timed out on me. That's why. It's depending on who's doing the job, you can probably get it done in about 4 hours, but sometimes it takes upwards of 6.5 hours, depending on how those rear bolts are 2.5, 3 foot long breaker bars on those bolts. Impacts with heat, and then break the sockets and the adapters that I use on those rear bolts in the subframe. Yeah, that's the new VC13G, the new coolant that replaces the orange pinkish color Motorcraft. It's VC13G. Flush is okay, sure it is. But that's if it was not running bad already. If it's running bad and if it's slipping and stuff like that, and you go flush a trans that's already malfunctioning, you're going to do some damage. I wouldn't flush a vehicle that's already malfunctioning. I would only flush a vehicle that is of sound performance. Something that's malfunctioning, when you change everything that's inside it, you can really do some damage, especially a transmission. Yeah, if you're just maintaining, you're fine. You can flush it. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I think anytime somebody comes out with a new design and they're guaranteeing stuff like that, they want people to buy the truck. They're not in it to actually, they don't know that that's the truth. They have no idea. They're going to go to a completely different design engine. To make those kind of claims, I'd run the furthest I could away from somebody making that claim on a
So here, you have to really JO65. You gotta be careful with the don't do. There are some obviously fine lines, and I know me and you probably understand what those are. But when you're looking at giving recommendations to people, it's nice to lay them out. Why would you not do, and why would you do? It's not just don't do. Don't do a trans flush. Do a trans service right now. The next time, if the vehicle is running good, you've kept up on your maintenance, and you're doing your services a little bit early, don't change the filter the second time. Pull fluid out of it. Do an 80%er or something like that. Have somebody run a flush machine through it where you're doing a dipstick flush instead of a pan drop and filter. That way you can pull what's in the pan out, put 4.5, 5 quarts of fresh fluid in there, and then while the vehicle's running, put a quart in, pull a quart out. Let it run, pull a quart in, pull a quart out. And you can really get some nice, decent flush going on there. There's no written rule or no real hardcore answer on that. If you're keeping up with the vehicle and you're never letting the fluid really get dirty and nasty and gritty and smells like it's burnt, I've done plenty of flushes on 231,000 miles on that transmission outside right now in my car. Drop in a filter, put it back together. 10,000 miles later, I changed just the fluid. 20,000 miles later, I ran 12 quarts of fresh fluid through while cycling some of the old. And the next time I go in, I will put another new filter and another set, or a pan drop. Works phenomenal. And sometimes I do a full flush on my vehicles. My Dodge out there is 176,000 miles on that Dodge with the same beat up trans from 2001. Flush the hell out of that trans, and it runs like a rape day.
The 10R80 has been it's been an ongoing issue. I'm not a trans guy, so I couldn't tell you what the reason is, and even a lot of the trans guys can't pinpoint exactly why it is the way it is. What they're trying to do is they're trying to stack too many gears inside these transmissions and expect them all to work. Okay, from first to third to seventh to 10th. I mean, quit. Everybody wants a race car, but they don't want to complain about the problems that go along with all of these things. It's not a good idea. So you got to put everything back to factory programming, Andrew. All right, so they can't get parts, just like the vehicle I'm working on right now. I just got done putting this auxiliary fluid pump in this hybrid Explorer. They said it's supposed to fix the problem. That's what the engineers told me. I put the pump in today, filled it all up with fresh fluid, maintenance light came right back on. They can't get parts. In order for me to get a transmission for this vehicle, there's no ETA. The cam phaser stuff, it's hard to get parts. The engines, it's hard to get parts. It's very difficult to get parts right now. Get out of here. I mean, it's 8:14 and I'm still at the dealership talking to people about TSBs and recalls and answering questions. I love you all. I really do. But I got a life too. I want to get home. I want to relax. I'm going to take my boots and stuff off and probably answer more questions while I'm laying in my bed. Thank you. I appreciate that, Andrew. I appreciate everybody here. And remember, guys, that power probe or that circuit probe that's on the channel, you only got until the 15th to get that thing for like $53 or something like that. Ansel and Amazon really did a good number for us. And a lot of people are getting that thing and they love it. Some people already got it. Some people are already using it. I gave one to my coworker today as a giveaway for thanks for his expertise and his 35 years in the field and always being there for me when I need him and me being there for him. So as my appreciation to him, I took one of those power probes that I ordered, and I actually took it over to him and said, thank you for everything that you've done for me. I really appreciate that. It's a great gift to give to somebody. I think it's like 30 or 40 feet of lead or something like that, and it does all the stuff that the name brand ones do. It's not as robust, but it definitely gets the job done. And guys are saying they're paying like $50, $53 for this thing when it's a $120, $130 item, something like that. So make sure you take a look at the community channel. I make nothing off of that. Literally, it's an Amazon link. It's not an affiliate link. It goes right to the Amazon website. My payment for that was actually reviewing the product, and then they were like, wow, this was amazing. You did awesome. You did great. We're going to give your subscribers an additional 35% off once already there. The code and everything to apply is there. Guys, I love you all. Be blessed. I'm going home. I'm going to go relax. Probably going to still answer some questions, but I'll be at the house. Thanks, guys.